Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of intense racing action in the Sim Racing Collective MX-5 Championship for 2025 as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. That's right, folks. We are back with a slightly delayed broadcast for the penultimate round of the championship season, which continues to try and provide us with an answer to the question, who is the master or mistress of the Mazda MX-5 Cup car here in the Sim Racing Collective community? 4 rounds have played out so far, and they've been 4 absolutely incredible rounds of racing that have seen us travel around the globe, but throughout there has been a running theme, and that is it's been close-knit racing from start to finish with each and every lap turned. But today, for round number 5, we made our way to the US of A for the Watkins Glen International Circuit, and goodness me, this is going to feel as though it's the Sim Racing Collective meets NASCAR meets MX-5s, because it's going to be close, it's going to be fierce, and at the very core of it is going to be a circuit which is absolutely known for its ability to generate some incredibly close racing, because of course we're racing on the original Cup layout circuit. We're not running the more modern boot layout. No, we're taking away the boot and we're focusing on what is the length of 3.89 kilometres, alternatively 2.45 miles of Cup course layout. And this circuit, with sweeping bends, it's extended straight, and very little in the way of heavy braking zones, is going to be a circuit where the pack racing is going to be absolutely intense throughout. And come the end of it all, well, it could just serve to shake everything up before our season finale in only a week's time, and that season finale, of course, being at none other than what is the Red Bull Ring. As we make our way into this round, we welcome you all to this post-round broadcast from Circuit Side. You're tuning in right now live, but the racing itself occurred as of earlier this week, back on what was Monday, the 6th of October 2025. Due to technical issues, we couldn't quite bring it to you live, but we're here today to bring it to you as if it were live only a few days later on a Thursday, the 9th of October 2025. We do apologise for that completely unexpected circumstances, but still we're here now, and we're going to push on, much like we have previously, with regards to all of our racing action, and indeed, we're not going to let technical issues hold us back from providing you some absolutely incredible coverage of some absolutely phenomenal racing. On your schedule for tonight, as you tune in live via the YouTube channel of the Sim Racing Collective, on YouTube, of course, that is search for TSRC or the Sim Racing Collective. What our schedule for tonight in the UK time zone, of course, the British Summer Time is BST, or Greenwich Mean Time, or what is Universal Coordinate Time +1, as we can see in just shy of a couple minutes time at 6:05 this evening. We'll be taking a look at all the action from the qualifying session. 10 minutes, 3 laps each to our drivers, plus also that out lap. Who's going to put it on pole before they make their way to the grid for the first of our 2 races for today? We begin, of course, with our 15-minute sprint race due to get underway and approximately 6:15, after which we'll be taking a brief breather before returning at just after 6:30 this evening for our 30-minute feature race. And of course, keep in mind, we are going to be seeing there what will be the top 10 of the grid completely inverted, and that is going to create some absolutely phenomenal racing from start to finish. And come the end of it all, we will be seeing whether we have still got a championship alive in our Pro and Am classes, or whether we might be crowning our champions penultimate lead early, particularly when it comes to the Pro class. But still, let's not give too many things away straight away. Let's build up to it, shall we? So as we make our way into this round, let's recap how things have played out so far. In terms of the season, as we can see, we are now into that penultimate round. Next time out, it'll be the Red Bull Ring's National Circuit on Monday, the 13th of October, and we will be bringing you that live from Circuit Side, barring any technical difficulties. But as we say, very interesting circumstances of technical difficulties, and hopefully they will not be occurring again. But the Watkins Glen Cup Circuit plays host today after we've come from Spain, and the Navarra Speed Circuit Medium Circuit. Well, what did that deliver? It delivered absolute pandemonium from lights out to checker flag in both of our races there. And in the Pro class, well, it was an absolute scrap at the front of the field, with Jamie Nuttall taking a win and a 7th place, really leading the way and moving to 22 points clear from Kieran Sharp, who heads the chasing pack, but he found himself absolutely engrossed in plenty of fighting, and for Kieran Sharp, a 4th and a win. He was able to match, if not surpass Nuttall, but not by enough to make it so that Nuttall right now cannot seal things with a round to spare should he get it right. In the AM class, meanwhile, in the AM class, it was the story of Mav Gardner all day, who picked up back-to-back victories and heads into this round with plenty of momentum on his side and has catapulted his way all the way into the thick of it, given the fact that right now he sits only a few points behind championship leader Martin Foster, who had mixed results in both the feature and the sprint, with what was a 2nd place finish in the feature, compounded by a 5th place finish in the sprint. So it's going to be absolutely intense as we come into this round. Indeed, those championship standings absolutely subverted, but more on those in due course. Because let's talk a little bit about our host circuit, shall we? It's the Watkins Glen International Cup course, located near the village of Dix in Schuyler County, or Schuyler County, I should say, of the state of New York in the US of A. This circuit, of course, a big thank you to iRacing.com for not just their brilliant simulator, but their track mats that come with it, is a circuit that is absolutely known throughout time for its fast flowing bends. Only 7 corners, even with the bus stop chicane there, which doesn't take a corner number, intriguingly. As our drivers weave and wind their way around this circuit, it really feels as though it's going to be flat out for the best part. Will be at least 90% a lap. As the run out of 90 right at turn number 1, that'll be the first major braking zone. We'll then see our drivers go flat out through the S turns 2, 3 and 4, reaching the highest part of the circuit as they then make their way into the bus stop chicane, the second major braking zone. Through the bus stop chicane, they'll roll before heading into the outer loop, and there, coming out, it'll be about momentum and going flat out all the way in towards turn number 6, after which the left into right combination of the medium speed corners will see our drivers eject their way back onto the start-finish straight to complete lap and do it all over again. Rules-wise, well, as we get ready to go racing, of course, we have to race with some rules in mind. Setup-wise, this is a fixed setup series where drivers being provided with setups ahead of each and every round. Qualifying wise, a closed qualifying format shall be following us shortly, and that will see drivers have their outlap plus 3 flying laps available to set their best possible time. There is no overtime in qualifying, so when we do hit 10 minutes, that's it. Qualifying is done, and we move immediately straight onto what will be the first race of the day. Speaking of which, that sprint race grid shall be set based on results of qualifying. That's a given. When we go to the feature race grid, it will be set as a top 10 reverse grid based on results of the sprint. In layman's terms, that means the winner of the sprint race, they start 10th on the grid for the feature. The 10th place finisher of the sprint starts on pole for the feature. We flip everyone in between upside down, and meanwhile from 11th downwards in the sprint, that's exactly where they'll start in the feature race. Each driver shall have 1 fast spare available in each race should they need it, and should a driver be unfortunate enough to accumulate 17 or more instant points, they will receive a drive-through penalty. All race stewarding meanwhile shall be conducted post-round. But without further ado, we head back to circuit side, ladies and gentlemen, and in good time, because let's take you through those championship standings then, as we make our way into this round, starting with the Pro class. And here we can see Jamie Nuttall on 158 points, 22 clear of Kieran Sharp right now, and he could wrap things up with a round to spare. And I think for Jamie Nuttall, he'll want to get things done today, because something tells me for some reason he can't make the season finale due to personal circumstances. And if my memory is correct, then that will definitely mean for Nuttall he needs to get as many points as possible and put Kieran Sharp under major pressure. Kieran Sharp's teammate from the Sim Racing Collective Esports, Tom Davidson, he is within reach of the crack to racing driver and can prevent the title as well, but he needs a huge swing of results. He needs Nuttall to have a nightmare today, and the same for his teammate Kieran Sharp, albeit Sharp has got the upper hand of the term over the season. Tom Davidson, therefore, really will be looking rearward now towards Craig Twardock, who sits in full, having come on leaps and bounds as the season has gone on and is continuing to threaten right at the front of the field. It does seem as though right now he's finding a lot of pace in the second half of this season. Who can blame him when he put himself on the front row of the grid again in the sprint race at Navarra? Only to fall a little bit further down the order, but still it was a brilliant qualifying performance and put Jamie Nuttall under major pressure in qualifying. Nick Clemens sits a further 11 behind for iRacing Esports head of Francesco Petalin. The absolute motorsport ace-lift driver really has been enjoying his racing, there's no doubt about that, and he loves getting stuck into the racing, that's a certain. We'll have to see what he can do today. And then we do see there Miles Owens in 7th for Altura Esports ahead of Alan McCain, only at 15 points between the two of them, with then Cracked Racing's Bart Raven in 9th ahead of Andrew Pike to complete the Pro Top 10. The Sim Racing Collective Esports drive then being followed up by Clive Bourne in 11th, best of the rest of Big Pig Racing by VRS, and it's Bradley Horsenall, Sam Smith, William Chandler, Jack Southfield, Eugenio Polici, and Kieran O'Reilly and Gugly Kunzabo complete your top 18, and outside the top 18 of the pros, well, there's no more drivers to be counted there. So let's now make our way into the AM class considerations. And when we do look at the AMs, well, 4 points is the difference at the top of the table. Martin Foster for RPMS Simsport. He has been the unstoppable one at the very top. There's only one problem. Mav Gardner is coming quick. And with back-to-back wins last time out at Navarra, he is definitely right now, with the momentum on his side, looking to be unstoppable in his crusade to try and move to the top. Will he be leading after Watkins Glen? That is the thought process that many will have in their minds, the Sim Racing Collective Esports driver. The priorities of Daniel Moffat, Janos Wenzel and Paul Sims, they complete the top 5. And, well, all 3 drivers there now starting to fight more for third than fighting for the win, but never know what could happen in this round and the final round. With David Long a further, 21 points behind for La Broca Racing Team in 6th, and Reedy leading the charge now for 6th place in the championship, ahead of Matt Smith and Mark Pizer, with the 3 drivers being separated by only 2 points. Behind the Cracked Racing and the Privateer drivers, then we have Bottle Job Racing's Lenny Hansen, who sits in 9th, ahead of Valeria Tedeschi, who rounds off the AM top 10. And then behind him by 7 points will be Martin Arendel, best of the rest, 4 points ahead of what is the quartet of Credo Turan, Thomas Martin, Luke Smith, and Gareth Ronda. And on 41 points, it's Mickey Ford, and yet score any points, Ben Hunter there for Greasy Bandits Racing, rounds off the standings to 0 points. So that's how they all stand, and the championships go into this round then. And as our drivers make the way around, well, we are just waiting now to make our way into what will be qualifying. Now, we should point out here, oh, goodness me, as that's a bit of elbows out, it is going to be an immediate end to what will be the practice session, ladies and gentlemen. And now we make our way into this qualifying session. And, well, who is going to be on pole? Let's find out. So as the drivers make the way into qualifying, this is how they'll all start to head on out in some very tricky conditions, because we can see a bit of rain has fallen on the circuit earlier on. That's something we haven't had a chance to talk about yet as this closed qualifying session gets underway. The weather could play perhaps the biggest factor we've seen it play all season. Now, of course, there was some expected weather earlier on in the season at Silverstone International. It came too late to really mix things up. However, the forecast is saying there's a guarantee of rain, or a very high chance of rain, approximately 80%. And if the rain does come, it would be coming at some point during the sprint race. It could be arriving literally as the sprint starts. That is the potential forecast. And we could see that rain follow all the way through into what would be, what would be into the feature race. And if so, we could end up in a situation whereby, depending on exactly when the rain falls, we may see a situation whereby drivers have to go from a dry tyre to a wet tyre and back and forth. And that could lead to pit stops. It could also lead to a game of survival, where those who try to survive on a particular tyre may be rewarded, essentially, by outlasting the racing conditions. As we did see at the British GT over the weekend at Donington Park in the Donington Decider finale, where the rain did come, but it didn't come on strong enough to mandate wet tyres, and those who stayed out on the dries at a very slippery circuit, albeit GT3 and GT4 cars, but the point being there, those who stayed out on the slicks were able to make it work, as Mark Paisley there does a bit of theatrics. Now, another thing to point out as well is because we are running the Cup layout, this is the NASCAR Cup layout, and therefore track limits are a little bit looser. The fact that drivers are permitted to use the entire circuit on the exits of both turns 1 and also 6. So you will see drivers intentionally run wide. It's also the same going through turn number 5 on the outer loop bend. So don't be surprised if you see drivers running all the way to the wall coming out of these corners. But of course, the risk of doing so is if you get pinched on corner exit, you may find yourself very quickly returning to the barrier before you've been able to clear it. But all the drivers now onto their first flying laps, and we do have an absolutely packed field here today, which is absolutely wonderful to see. No doubt about it, as Mickey Ford being one of many drivers for FD Racing, who right now just starts his first flying lap a little bit later. In the YouTube chat, we do say hello to a number of you, including Average Sharpie, who says, if you see me taking anyone out, it's all AI generated. Or goodness me, the AI generation right now, I mean, all this racing is AI generated. I don't think there are even any drivers behind these cars. Joking aside though, AI generated material definitely taking over a lot of perspectives, but we're not going to see any AI generation here. It's all going to be hardcore racing between our sim racers, as the 33, the very shiny 33 of Martin Rendell, roars its way around, and the Privateer right now just picking up the pace as he heads towards what will be the exit of turn number 5. We also say hello to McFly88, who says, woohoo, can't wait to see what happens. And indeed, if you do know the outcome of any of the sessions, whether it be qualifying or the 2 races, we do politely ask for this post-round broadcast you don't put any spoilers in the YouTube chat, because I've done my utmost to make sure that I've not seen anything in relation to the race, and I was absolutely heartbroken when I couldn't cover this live. But from what I gather with the weather forecast, all I will tell you is this is going to get interesting. From what I gather, that's the only snippet I've been allowed to know. Otherwise, they've kept me locked in a room for the last couple of days and said you are not allowed to know any information. It really has been a gagging order, and well, that sounds a bit awkward there. I've locked in a room in a gagging order. I won't go any further with that, ladies and gentlemen, because otherwise we're going to an 18 rated broadcast very quickly. But right now, what's not 18 rated here is Nick Clemens is putting himself on provisional pole on a 23.626. He's on the dry tyre there. Indeed, all the drivers right now will be on the dry compound, but I wonder how long it'll be before they make the switch over. Now, we should point out that unfortunately, due to the fact this is a post-round broadcast, we can't get you the tyre compound data. So we are going to have to guess what tyre compounds drivers are starting on, what they're running on. We will figure that out, but we'll do everything we can to figure it out for you, ladies and gentlemen, as much as we humanly possibly do. But as we do see Nick Clemens roaring his way on through, indeed, this could definitely prove to be a little bit of a dramatic conclusion to the penultimate round if the rain definitely comes on full force. And many drivers, I think, will be hoping for that, including Francesco Petrolin, who's been enjoying the racing, as have the Absolute Motorsport Ace Lift team. And well, we're going to enjoy an on-board lap with him as he makes his way out of the final quarter and takes us onto his final flying lap for this qualifying session. So down towards turn number 1 he goes, and as our dashboard there tries to find the exact speed he's making, he's going so quick, he's outrunning it. He'll head onto the brakes there. What will be the 150-yard mark? In towards turn number 1 he goes, a dab of the brakes, 3rd gear, and they'll let the car... Oh my goodness, that's not how you start a qualifying lap. And for Francesco Petrolin, that's the end of his lap before he's even been able to get it going. Well, that's a brutal one. And well, Bart Raven will pick up the slack as he makes way on through. And that's the point we were making about the fact if you let the car run out a bit too wide out of turn number 1, you're going to find yourself very quickly making your way to the tyre barrier, and that is not a happy place to be. But Bart Raven, the Cracks Racing driver here in the very colourful livery machine, heads on, and in the 51 right now he makes his way down the backstretch and up towards the bus stop chicane. He's been flat out for the S's, but now look to your left, you'll see the yardage boards there, and he'll make his way onto the brakes, about the 400-yard board, dab the brakes, drop a gear, and now chuck it through the right into left, then the left into right. A bit tighter in the second part of the bus stop chicane, and that's why he's had to reduce his speed and drop down to 3rd gear then for the outer loop corner, and now rolling his way through the long right-hander. Well, it's a lot longer here compared to what is the boot layout. You see they'd normally go off to the left there for the boot, but they're staying on the main tarmac here for the cup layout, and eventually you can get the throttle down, and now up towards turn number 6. Looking to his right for his brake mark, and it will be at the 200-yard board. He dabs the brakes, puts the weight on the nose, chunks the car into the corner, flat out on the throttle as he rolls over the exit curb, back over to the left-hand side, immediately here for turn number 7, and exits the corner in 3rd gear and runs it all the way to the wall. Now, Raven is in 9th place at the moment. How high will he get before this is said and done? And the answer is he's going to stay 9th, but he does find a bit of a personal improvement out there. So, decent result there from Bart Raven. Not a good lap with it, a 23.95. As he decides in the end to make haste to wall in solidarity with Petrolin. But as he parks up now, have we got anybody else on a lap? Kieran Sharp is out there at the moment, and Mr. Sharp will run his way on through. It does look as though his livery's decided not to load itself, and well, we will try to fix the liveries that have decided to be well, goodness me, we'll try to fix those liveries before we do go racing. So I think some liveries have decided not to come on through. That does happen every so often. But meanwhile, Eugenio Polici here parked up. He's going to be starting this one in 11th place. He won't be too happy about that. I think he would have been hoping for a lot more in qualifying, as we do say hello to Francesco Petrolin, who says, come on, the only time my onboard is shown. Of course, I do apologise, Francesco. This seems to be a habit I have as a broadcaster stroke commentator, which is when I jump and get an onboard lap with somebody, particularly in this series, this season, whoever that driver is, the first driver we pick either has a spin, puts it in the wall, or decides to abort lap before they've even got going. I don't plan to do that, I can promise you, but goodness me, if I had a penny for every time I'd done it, I think by this point I would have made 60 pence or perhaps even £1. But as we do see Ronda making his way along there, he's on a cool-down lap in the Planet Express machine for Cracks Racing. He can't go any further. Mav Gardner then is keeping us guessing, as is Lenny Hansen, as Sam Smith has moved up to 12th place. But where are our AM drivers in all this? Because we've been focusing quite heavily on our pros. Well, the highest placed AM driver at the moment is Janos Wenzel. Here he is, and well, the privateer making his way through the final corner. And as he does so, well, Wenzel right now, I think, will be very happy of how this is all turning out. We'll have to see what this is going to mean, however, when he does go green flag racing, because he is the provisional and pole sitter ahead of none other than Martin Rendell, who would be starting this one in 14th place currently if all these laps are valid. Now, that's one thing we do have to point out, is the fact that between qualifying and going to the grid, all these laps will be checked automatically by iRacing to confirm whether they are valid laps, and if not, we could see a little bit of a shuffling when it comes to the starting order for drivers, but we will see what is going to be in store for them all. But as we do then see none other than Mav Gardner making his way on through, not long to go before the end of his qualifying session. And our overlay there just doing some data refresh in the background. Please bear with us, it does that. Well, right now, can he end this qualifying session on a high? And the answer is going to be for Mav Gardner, who's 20th currently. He'll want to get a lot closer to the very front, particularly to Janos Wenzel. The answer is going to be for Gardner. Yes, he can. He moves to 17th place, 4th in AM, and it's a decent lap, but I think that 24.53, he was hoping for a bit more. So the big names of some classes definitely struggling, whereas others going well, and perhaps the biggest surprise of all, Jamie Nuttall at 7th place, not on pole. He's been a customary pole sitter for the last few rounds, but now for Jamie Nuttall, it's a 7th place start. But then again, qualifying at Watkins Glen isn't really worth much in reality because of how close the pack-based racing is. Mav Garner does have one more attempt at this, however, to try and go even faster. He's the only driver with a lap left. Paul Sims has not put a time in, and the reason for that is because Paul Sims is serving a qualifying ban for picking up a total of 6 licence points after round number 4, after a bit of a shunt he was involved in what was the sprint race, I do believe, at the Circuito de Navarra. So therefore for Sims, it's all gone a bit backwards and he's going to have to start from the very back of the field. So Mav Garner here has an opportunity to really move forward. As he heads up towards what we turn 6 and 7. Right now for Sims, it's going to be watch and wait as Mav Garner now tries to pick his way on through these last 2 corners. Looking to be in good control here as he goes from left into right. And through the final corner he goes. Carl practically drifting there in the 805. And well, 10 seconds left on the clock. He is going to squeeze this lap in just about as that checker flag waves. And well, for Mav Garner, is it going to be a promotion? Is he going to stay where he is in 17th? He improves to 24.213. It puts him second in AM. A good lap from Mav Garner. But Janos Wenzel will take the AM pole. And Tom Davidson with it will take overall pole as we make our way to the grid then for our first race of the day here at Watkins Glen. So as all of our drivers get ready to line up, this is how they'll line up for our first race of the day. It is Tom Davidson who takes pole position there for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. He will be joined on the front row of the grid by his teammate. It's going to be none other than Kieran Sharp. Behind them on row number 2, where it's going to be the pairing of Nick Clemens for iRacing Esports with a season best qualifying performance, and William Chandler for Cracked Racing, who's made his way all the way up the order. It's been some time since we've seen him up the order such as this form. Francesco Pitolin starts in 5th place, and a good qualifying performance from him. He's not going to be missing that for Absolute Motorsport Acelift, despite that shunt to the barrier right towards the end of the session when we tried to jump on board, with Craig Twardock joining him on that 3rd row of the grid for MSA Racing. And there's Jamie Nuttall, championship leader, and could wrap it up today, but he's starting from 7th. He's given himself a bit more difficulty to go for this. The Cracked Racing driver there will be joined on the 4th row of the grid by Andrew Pite for the Sim Racing Collective Esports, with Bart Raven for Cracked Racing and Janos Wenzel, your AM pole sitter. Well done to Janos. That's a great pole lap there for 10th place. They round off your top 10. Eugenio Polici starts in 11th, best of the rest for Absolute Motorsport Acelift, ahead of Sam Smith for iRacing Esports. And then on row number 7, it's going to be Miles Owens for Altura Esports, ahead of Mav Gardner. Well, that's going to be interesting there, because Owens is out of position and Mav Gardner is well in position. Martin Rendell starts behind in 15th place, the privateer, ahead of David Long for La Bruca Racing Team. With Alan McCain, 17th on the grid for iRacing Esports, head of Bradley Horsenall. Martin Foster, another big story in qualifying, starts 19th or 5th of the AM drivers for RPMS Sim Sport. He would avoid to start a bit further up the order with Daniel Moffat for company alongside. That's your top 20. Matt Smith for Cracked Racing and Mark Pearser for the privateer, round off row 11, with row 12 going to the partnership of Gareth Ronda for Cracked Racing and Valeria Tedeschi. Then on row number 13, it'll be Thomas Martin for Shadow Drag Racing and Lenny Hansen for Bottle Job Racing, with Mickey Ford for FD Racing and Luke Smith, his teammate, on the penultimate row of the grid. And last but not least, behind the tree line there, the all-red machine of Paul Sims. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, everyone's sat on the grid. We're almost ready to go racing. And without further ado, we're now just waiting for the last couple of cars to pull themselves in position. And when they do, well, it'll be lights out and away we go. And well, it is going to be an exciting start to the race. There's no doubt about it, as 15 minutes of racing is only moments away. And Tom Davidson, well, he knows, alongside his teammate Kieran Sharp, it is going to be a relatively short run down towards turn number 1. But when he does go for it, will he be able to pull it off, or will the Sim Racing Collective driver be able to get ahead of his teammate? That we will see, as everyone right now just gets themselves comfortably into position. And we look to the long form of the grid. It's great to see so many MX-5s all lined up together. And, well, Kieran Sharp's livery finally coming back there. Our livery's just taking a bit of time to load. We do apologise for that. But thankfully, it's just as they're about to get ready to go racing. And, well, as everyone gets set here, everyone in a wonderful position, and we want to see those liveries in absolutely full glory, do we not? As all of our drivers now are set, the grid is ready, and it's time for race number 1. So the revs rise, and it's 5 red lights, and it's away we go for what is our first race of the day, as 15 minutes of racing gets roaring away. And as we do, the timer appears in the top left corner screen to keep you up to date with exactly how much time is going to pass as our drivers all the way and around. And Tom Davidson has a brilliant start there as he runs it all the way to the wall. Further back, every driver seems to have made it through the opening quarter at least, as we look now to the field from above, charging away on through and onwards towards what will be turns 2, 3 and 4. Well, right now, everybody everybody absolutely on a mission here to try and go as quick as they can. But of course, it will be all into pack racing from this point onwards as they all squeeze together. But these drivers right now absolutely push each other to the limit as they head up towards the bus stop chicane. And well, some changes afoot further down that order as we do see Andrew Pike now starting to make a bit of progress. He moves up into 7th place ahead of Jamie Nuttall, who falls down one position, and a bit further back it does look as though everyone's still safe up through the corners thus far. Now I say that with a bit of emphasis because anything could happen. It normally does in motorsport. Everyone on the dry tyre at the moment, it would seem. No rain in sight, at least for now. Side by side between Alan McCain and Martin Rendell as these two make the way up towards what will be turn number 6. As they do so, it's definitely now going to be all about a little bit of teamwork here between them if they don't want to let other cars around them fall away. I don't think they got the memo there with regards to not fighting each other, and I think they want to put on a bit of entertainment for us, and who are we to complain as Rendell here stays nice and close. Side by side they come out of the corner and upwards towards what will be lap number 2. So after one lap it's Tom Derriton in the lead ahead of Kieran Sharp. Nick Cliven sits in 3rd. 4th meanwhile William Chandler is just ahead of Craig Twardock. Twardock just jumping ahead there, Petalin as they come through, gets close to the wall and not too close there as we see some wipers going on. I think that might be for intermittent spray, but that battle's now caused the field behind to bunch up with Petalin and Twardock side by side, and then Andrew Pike and Jamie Nuttall, they're pushing the two drivers they're investing in along behind. We had a bit of an incident for Luke Smith further back. We'll get a replay of that when we can. And then we do see Bart Raven running in 9th ahead of Janos Wenzel. Your Pulsitter still holding on to 10th place. But here they go then, and we can see the scramble 3 wide as they make the way into the club chicane. And right now it is going to be a bit of a challenge here. Chandler trying to find his way through, can't find it for Cracked Racing and has to back off there. But good attempt on that run. Further back, Janos Wenzel's had a nightmare, and oh, no, that's not good at all. Eugenio Polici has been collected there. I wonder if Wenzel lost it, and Polici has been a casualty as a result of being in the right place at the wrong time. We'll try and find out that when we can, ladies and gentlemen. We just caught the edge of that. Paul Sims is up a couple of places. He's into 25th, and Mickey Ford and Luke Smith, they've both had nightmares as well. I think Ford's had to come into the pits at the end of lap number 1. I wonder whether he was involved in contact with Smith, because both drivers being in the pit lane, that doesn't seem too coincidental. But as our drivers come through towards the back of the field, it's definitely right now starting to get it firm. We've got a bit of damage on the front there of the car. I believe that is going to be Thomas Martin's car that's picked up some damage as well. The Shadow Dragon Racing machine has got a bit of front bumper damage, and the Planet Express machine, the Gareth Ronda from Cracked Racing, has definitely got a lot of damage on it. It's missing the entire front bumper and the radiator cover. But as we see Paul Sims diving up the inside here, he's going to be to no avail as Tedeschi and Polici, they decide to go side by side, the two Italians, but it's going to be Polici runs it all the way to the wall, and Valerio Tedeschi is made to wait. But from the back of the field to the very front, Tom Davidson still leads then. Nick Clivens is now trying to push his way along as Nick Clivens advises that Kieran Sharp is going to look around his outside here. 2 by 2. They go once again in towards the bus stop. And, well, Davidson and Sharp, they are managing this race. It's almost as if it's Noah's Ark combined with what is Mazda MX-5s here. 2 by 2 they go every time. Albeit now we just need a storm to open up, and it really will be of biblical proportions, this racing. We'll have to see, however, whether it's going to be biblical or not. But as they all roar the way onwards right now, all these drivers together, and, well, nose to tail as they come on down. Davidson ahead of Sharp and Clivens, Twardock and Chandler. That is your top 5, with Petalin still playing the waiting game. Further back, Pike here trying to do everything he can to get involved. The Sim Racing Collective esports driver looking at this and with eager anticipation, but he can't find a way in at the moment. But I would imagine that this top 9, they are all now settling down into a bit of rhythm here and realising the fact, much like at Navarra, you can't afford to really force a move on another driver, because as soon as you do, you will break this pack up, and suddenly your race to chase the victory becomes a race that's handicapped to be only chasing at what could be 5th place or higher. So that is going to be in the minds of these drivers here as they make the way up the hill, and the fact they will not want to essentially trip over each other's toes wherever they possibly can. But as they make the way along, Will Sharp right now looking around the outside here. This pack racing getting very close, and, well, here we can see it's all going to fan out at this point. Nick Clemens thinks about going up the middle, looking for the Moses manoeuvre here, and I can promise you this is not going to become a regular set of biblical references. But as they make the way on through right now, it's going to be on a prayer and a dream. He does move into 2nd place with Craig Twardock behind. Well, he's now starting to keep Chandler at bay. Jamie Nuttall in 7th place is not moving forward. But with that, we take a look back. Oh, goodness me, I was going to say we take a look back at some moments because Alan McCain, we look back to the chicane, and Alan McCain's in the barrier as well. Bits of the car have come flying off. Not quite sure how that's happened, but for McCain, that is going to be absolutely bruising. And as he tries to get the car turned around, he does so, but not without difficulty as we take a look back at some of the drama from the start of this race, beginning, of course, with what happened on the opening lap for Luke Smith. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen, with a replay. Now, this was right at the start as he made his way through turn number 2. Luke Smith in the end went one way, then the other, and the car came loose on him. And Luke Smith straight into the barrier there, and, well, a small mistake, but with big consequences. We had this for Eugenio Pellicci as he made his way on lap number 2 through the bus stop chicane, bouncing over the curbs. Janos Wenzel side by side, and it was Wenzel and Pellicci coming into contact. And in the end, well, Wenzel backing off there to make sure it was not a domino effect, but the damage was done to Pellicci, and he had to get himself back together. Lap number 3, we had this for Thomas Martin, and well, for Martin it was up the inside into turn number 7, side by side another car, took too much apex curb in the standing water there, kicked the car around, and in the end, we got it stopped in time, but that could have been far, far worse. And on lap number 4, all hell broke loose here between Paul Sims, Mark Pazer, and also the number 7, and this was coming through, contact there, the number 7 gets away with it. I believe that might have been Pellicci, but Sims and what was Pazer both to the barrier there with broken cars, and their races come to a halt. And only moments later we had this for Alan McCain, where it all went wrong as well. And for McCain, it was right into left here and bouncing over the curves. The car snapped one way, then the other, and for McCain it all went wrong and into the barrier at the bus stop chicane. So that explains the big moments from what was earlier in this race, as we now make our way, ladies and gentlemen, back to your live racing. As we do then, still more to come between all of our drivers, and right now we do see what is Alan McCain pushing along, but a long way further down the order as we have rain. Here comes the rain, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we were wondering when it was going to arrive on the scene, and goodness me, the rain is here. And well, it's exactly halfway point of the race. You could not make this up. This is going to be drama, because as our drivers make the way on through now, well, the problem is going to be here in the fact with what will be this rain. How exactly do you play this out? How exactly do you work this on through? And well, many will be wondering, well, do we come into the pits? Do we put on the wet tyre? Alternatively, do we stay out there on the slick tyre? I would imagine that most drivers here have started on what is the slick tyre, hoping that the rain would not come in full force. Unfortunately, we don't have that information available to us, but we're going to have to make guesses here. But this could be a race now that is all about survival as we head into the final and 7 minutes of racing. But it's going to be intriguing, it's going to be intense, and we're all the more for it, and the excitement between all the drivers as they get themselves absolutely set to be on attack. But we can see no rain here, so it might be at certain points on the circuit that the rain is falling, but either way right now it is going to be intriguing as to exactly where the rain could catch them out. Because you can see it's happening on the first half a lap, and on the very end of lap, that's where the rain is falling. Meanwhile, on the back half a lap, there is no rain whatsoever, so this is going to be a constant toss back and forth between where it's wet and where it's not, and in all of that, then somebody's going to have to figure this all out, because if they can't, well, it's all going to be in tears. And well, we want somebody to finish the race, but who's going to be finishing it as your winner? That's going to now be the real big question. Our top 9 all still together, but here comes a bit of a scramble as Miles Owens now brings himself in. In fact, he was running 10th place, so he's bringing himself right into the equation alongside what will be there Sam Smith, who falls a bit further backwards, and Francesco Petalin meanwhile is trying to run away with it. In the lead of the AM class right now is Mav Gardner. He's found a way to get back into all of this. He'll be very happy with that because of the fact that previously it has gone a bit backwards, but now he's definitely starting to move forwards, is Gardner, and will be looking to try and make it back-to-back wins where he can. But we will see what he's going to be able to do here as he weaves and winds his way between these corners. And well, he's looking quick, no doubt about it, but just how quick can he be before he finds himself under pressure from David Long, because Long is still right there with him, and Long right now is not too far away from potentially putting some pressure on. Be an intriguing challenge here then as they make the way back into more of a damp circuit, and it does seem as though that rain is continuing to confound. It seems to be creeping over most of the circuit now. The only point of the circuit has not been... Oh my good lord, there's all pieces of bumper everywhere. That's Petalin into the barrier. Petalin has hit the wall at turn number 7, and well, with him has been another driver as well. Is that Chandler? Yes it is. So Chandler and Petalin have both come into arrears. That's going to be Chandler towing to the pits. We've got more fighting going on at the very front. That's Craig Tardock and Miles Owens. It's all absolutely exploding here with 5 minutes to go, and that's very close to the wall there. If your name is Andrew Pike, practically wall riding his way out of turn number 1, and oh my good lord, that's Davidson into the wall. Davidson's into the barrier. They're on slicks. They've got to be on slicks here as they make the way out. They're struggling, these drivers, right now, but nobody wants to reveal their hand and come into the pit lane. So that's Davidson who falls from what was the very front of the field. Clemens is now your leader, and Jamie Nuttall has suddenly leapt his way to second place. Andrew Pike's with him, and well, Craig Tardock and Kieran Sharp are side by side here as they head in towards the bus stop chicane. This is going to be survival of the wettest here, surely, as they make the way around. It's not going to be about who's got the pace at this point, it's about who can keep it on the tarmac, because with that, big names fall in, a big slide, and that is Nick Clemens almost into the barrier. And my good lord, the Irish esports driver catching it as he may, and well, if he's never decided to play cricket or baseball, he might want to consider a fielder position, because if he can catch a car like that, imagine what he can do with a ball. But as they head up towards turn 6, they're now going to go 3 wide. That's Miles Owens on the inside of himself and Twardock. Minion can't make it work. Craig Tardock goes around the outside to take Clemens. Clemens going a bit sideways into the barrier. No one into the barrier. They're all into the barrier. That's well, and Ronda's carrying on as well. Bradley Horsnell's into the barrier at turn number 5. There's big names falling left, right and centre. And right now with 3.5 minutes to go plus the final lap, you couldn't make this up. They're all trying to crawl into the pit lane there in the rear of the picture. It's all pandemonium. Jamie Nuttall right now has survived it all, and if he can hold on for another 3.5 minutes, he will take the victory here and get himself very close. And so what will be the crown, we're round to spare, who only need a good clutch of points in the final race of the day, the feature race, and he will have this. I don't believe my eyes. Andrew Pike's still with him, and right now this is absolutely turning into pandemonium as they roll the way through. Craig Tardock's also there as well, but suddenly a top 10 or so close together is now a top 3 that is fanning out very gradually, but Andrew Pike is trying to keep this race alive all the way to the very end versus Jamie Nuttall, who seems to have got this absolutely spot on with regards to gauging the conditions. Although saying that right now, of course, we still do have at least 2 more tours of the circuit as the pace of this race is gradually dropping. The best laps that were set in the dry conditions, or the relatively dry conditions, were 23.6s. Now we are already into the 29.7s. I wouldn't be surprised if this is heading to the 30s and the 31s the next time they come around. And Pike right now and Twardock close together. We do need to get a replay of what happened to a number of drives earlier on, but I think we're going to stay with a live race here because this is absolutely enthralling all the way to the end. Pike right now feels a bit more comfortable in these conditions. He is a very smart driver when it comes to challenging conditions, particularly in the wet of the touring car. So right now, we're trying to use all that knowledge, but goes sideways there, and I should have kept my mouth shut because I've put the commentator's cursor on Andrew Pike. Does he get it pointed the right way? No, he goes round at 90 degree, and Pike in the end has to do a donut loop in order to get the car pointed back in the right direction. Thankfully, he doesn't escort himself into the pits, and right now just pushing a little bit too hard, and Jamie Nuttall now will lead this race, surely uncontested for at least this next lap, and well, they've got this lap plus 1 more, we do believe. They are on lap number 10, and well, I think with 2 minutes left on the clock when they started it, we will squeeze in an 11th tour of the circuit before we do see the checkered flag on this sprint. But my good lord, it has been a crazy race, and we've got so many drivers in the pit lane due to damage. We've got Valerio Tedeschi, we've got Davidson, Gardner, Smith, Hazer, Chandler, Sims and Luke Smith. And in terms of who's leading in the AM class right now, with Gardner into the pitch due to all the problems, Janos Venza, who got caught up in that incident earlier on, he is back into the AM lead with Lenny Hansen, who started at the very back of the AM field alongside the likes of Paul Sims and company. He's clawed his way all the way through to second, and Gareth Ronda is a little bit further back. He's currently in third. You could not make this up. We've had drivers just come through the field very gradually by just driving at their pace and not making mistakes. And as soon as I say that, Lenny Hansen gets it all out of sorts, brings it back together just about, but almost ends up going into the barrier at the bus stop chicane, and now will hold on to second because Ronda is so far back by comparison. It is all about keeping it together. And well, as we do look to Martin Foster, we say hello to there in the YouTube chat, or what is McFly88. Well, the sun's coming out right now, and for him, the sun's coming on for an 8th place finish here. But hold it, no! That's Jamie Nuttall! Nuttall's into the barrier coming up the final corner. It's going on to the final lap, and Craig Tardock, Sonny, has taken the lead this race. Nuttall's got it wrong. I don't believe it. And what was looking to be a sealed done and deal, now for Jamie Nuttall Nuttall is a third place if he can hold on to it. Tardock now leads. Now for Craig Tardock, all he's got to do is hold on for one more lap. But look at the traffic in front of him here. You couldn't make this up as the car is sliding left, sliding right. This is all the drivers who had to come into the pits for repair work and for that tow and the fast repair. Plus also they probably put some wet tyres on. Tardock's making his way onwards. And as we say hello to Numbers there, who says it's absolute cinema of a sprint race. Indeed, you said it best, good sir, or madam. And right now Craig Tardock just needs to hold on. Kieran Sharp is in pursuit, and Sharp knows he needs this win to force Nuttall on the back foot going into the feature race. But for Craig Tardock, if he pulls this off, it'll be his first win of the season. And from a man who came into this season not expecting to be, oh no, I was about to say, oh, they're all into the wall. Tardock's into the wall, Sharp's into the wall. My good lord, now who's going to finish this race? Jamie Nuttall's coming up through, he's sliding everywhere. He's had a big hit to the wall previously, so his car's not really pointing too happy. He's sliding all over the place. There's going to be a bit further back. We've got Francesco Petalin catching up. Where is Tardock in all of this? They can't keep it on the track. Tardock struggling along. The car is bruised. It is battered, but it's not over as the clock strikes 15 minutes. This race is on its final lap, and as Tardock just tries to survive, it's 2 more corners for the Briton. He's struggling. The car barely turns as he makes his way through the final corner. Jamie Nuttall is coming along quickly. Tardock's got 1 more corner to go. All he's got to do is get it round the corner to the checker flag, but Nuttall here is making his way through. Is he going to break the hearts of MSA Racing? He struggles. He passes Tardock and now heading down the start-finish straight. The checker flag waves and it goes. I don't believe I'm saying this. It goes to Jamie Nuttall as he takes victory in the sprint here at Watkins Glen ahead of Craig Tardock, who comes on through to take second place. And that is another season best performance for Tardock, but it's heartbreak at the finish line. Francesco Petalin survives it all and slices his way to a third place finish ahead of your AM winner of Janos Wenzel. I believe we're on the final lap because Tardock's car has had to tow. Surely Tardock's not being demoted down the order. Well, if so, he's perhaps picked up a penalty after the race, but as they make the way on out, Janos Wenzel is being promoted to third. Well, we'll call him as we see across the line. Kieran Sharp took fifth at least on the road, with Daniel Moffat in the runner-up spot in the AM class there, taking what is sixth. They're all being shuffled up and down the order, ladies and gentlemen, here. I'm not quite sure what's happening. I think this is where drivers are jumping out their cars, to be fair, as this race is still to end. And my good lord, it is absolute pandemonium here as we have Bart Raven coming through for 10th place, and then it will be best the rest of Martin Rendell in 11th, with Andrew Pint taking home and 12th place at the end of the car. That's still looking sketchy as he heads towards the line. And then we will, just behind him, have what will be the finishing presence of Sam Smith, with Mav Gardner meanwhile in 14th place. Hold up a second. That was Martin Rendell having a spin right at the end. I think he's had to tow the car to the pit lane. And don't quote me on that, but Mav Gardner makes his way on through. He's dropped down to 22nd. Our timing tower here is having an absolute spate of a moment. There's Alan McCain still trying to get to the finish line here. Well, as far as I'm aware, well, okay, the timing tower has now corrected itself. We do apologise. I think it's where so many drivers are towed to the pits. Our timing tower has decided it's lost track of the entire way the race has gone. But I think that's going to be the end of race number 1, ladies and gentlemen. And as we warm up now for race number 2, if you can call it warming up, with the rain definitely coming down in droves, let's give you a quick recap of those finishing positions subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries. And here they are from race number 1. And so after an incredible ending to our sprint race here at Watkins Glen in round number 5 of the 2025 Sim Racing Collective MX-5 Championship, brought to you on iRacing, Jamie Nuttall seals another win for Cracked Racing, and with it puts one hand on the pro title for this season ahead of Craig Tardock, the MSA Racing driver, finishing second place, heartbroken and still fuming, as he says in the YouTube chat. Then we say hello to Craig. No, you're doing well, Craig. But the MSA Racing driver, known he's matched the season best performance, but hasn't made it onto that top step. Francesco Petalin, a great result there for the Absolute Motorsport A-Stiff driver, somehow surviving to a third place. With Janos Wenzel in the end, it all started on a bad note, but it's ended on a high note by taking the AM win, the privateer, head of the Sim Racing Collective Esports' Kieran Sharp. We then did see Daniel Moffat taking 6th place, and well, from them, it was the run for Gav Ronda for Cracked Racing, and with Moffat and Ronda, they complete what what will be your AM podium, with Gareth Ronda making his way onto the podium of the AMs for the first time this season. Well done to him. Lenny Hansen was only 5 seconds back for Bottle Job Racing, and then it was David Long for LeBrucker Racing Team ahead of Cracked Racing's Bart Raven that completed your top 10. 11th was Martin Rendell, best of the rest, ahead of the Sim Racing Collective Esports' Andrew Pike, and then we did have Sam Smith and Nick Clemens for iRacing Esports complete the lead lap finishers through to 14th. It was a lap down for so many, starting with Bradley Horsdale. And then Mav Gardner in 16th place ahead of Alan McCain and Miles Owens. We then did see a little bit further back, well, it was Matt Smith and Martin Foster for Cracked Race and RPMS SimSport respectively. And how this is going to flip things upside down, it's practically going to put what will be Gardner and Foster on parity in the AM Championship after this race. And therefore they go into race number 2 at 9, that every point matters most. In 21st was Valerio Tedeschi ahead of Thomas Martin. And then it was 2 laps down to Eugenio Polici and Mickey Ford. 3 down to Tom Davidson after leading the race until the rain arrived. 4 laps down to both William Chandler and Mark Peza. And then we did see misfortune strike Paul Sims finishing 6 laps down. And I do believe that, unfortunately, not classified as a finisher because he was over 5 laps down off the race winner. And the same for Luke Smith for FD Racing, who was your 29th and last classified individual racer. But goodness me, ladies and gents, but what a crazy first race of the day here. I mean, I think right now I'm going to need a body double at this rate for the amount of what is having my voice go to about 6 octaves higher than normal. And I don't think I can go any higher. At that point, I'd become Justin Hawkins, if you know who I'm referring to, or Freddie Mercury, if you're of a Britpop disposition. But as the rain does fall here at the Watkins Glen circuit, well, the good news is we are only months away now from going racing it once again. And coming up next is a 30-minute feature race for a top 10 inversion. What role will the weather have to play? Let's find out. So as our drivers make the way onto the grid for the second and final time today, this is how they'll all line up. It is going to be Bart Raven who takes the inverted top 10 pole position for Cracked Racing. That's overall and in the pro class, ahead of David Long, the LeBrucker Racing Team driver, who takes the AM pole position in second. Lenny Hansen for Bottle Job Racing starts third, just ahead of Gareth Ronda for Cracked Racing. And then we will see from a row of AMs there. I think this is the first time we have seen more AMs than we have pros. In fact, let me do the quick mental mathematics. No, it's an equal number there, so almost gave you false statistics and fake news with it. But the news is, for the first time this season, we have seen an equal number of AMs and pros inside the top 10 on this grid, and that's going to make it intriguing, because behind Ronda will be Daniel Moffat, another AM, and then the pro of Kieran Sharp for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. The pro of Janos Wenzel, your winner in the AM class in race done 1, starts 7th ahead of Francesco Petalin for Absolute Motorsport Acelev, and then Craig Twadot for MSA Racing and Jamie Nuttall for Cracked Racing. They will complete your top 10. It's then as they finish for the rest of this grid, starting in 11th, of course, Martin Rendell with a privateer ahead of Andrew Pike for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. We then make our way to row number 7, and that's where you'll find Sam Smith for iRacing Esports alongside his teammate Nick Clibbins. We then have Bradley Horsnell starting 15th ahead of Mav Gardner for the Sim Racing Collective Esports, and well, Mav Gardner knowing he's got an opportunity here to really put some points over Martin Foster, who starts 2 rows back, and between himself and what is Martin Foster, he firstly has Alan McCain, who starts 17th for iRacing Esports, with Miles Owens for company in 18th for Altura Esports. Matt Smith, looking for a big result, starts in 19th for Cracked Racing, just ahead of Martin Foster, and the RPMS SimSport driver will know he'll be on the back foot if he finishes behind Mav Gardner, going to what will be our season finale at the Red Bull Ring. In 21st, we have Valerio Tedeschi, whose car has been repaired after the big shunt in race number 1, but the priority being joined by Thomas Martin on row 11 for Shadow Drag Racing, and then we have Eugenio Polici for Absolute Motorsport Acelev and Mickey Ford for FD Racing on row 12. On row number 13, it will be Tom Davidson for the Sim Racing Collective Esports and William Chandler for Cracked Racing. And then on the final full row of the grid, it's Mark Peza ahead of Paul Sims, with Luke Smith starting 29th and the FD Racing driver trying to make his way forward in this one after a difficult end to his race number 1. Well, that's how they all line up, and race number 2 is almost upon us, ladies and gentlemen, and, well, we will be adding another 15 minutes to the race duration, and with an extra 15 minutes, well, that's only going to keep things even more exciting, as everybody looks to go absolutely battle crazy in towards turn number 1 and throughout the entire race distance. But we will see exactly how it all plays out, because of course everyone will keep their heads down, and as they get ready to go, the big challenge will be seeing who exactly will survive the conditions as the rain starts falling once again. And this is going to create a bit of an awkward situation, because do you start on wets, do you start on dries? We don't know, but what we do know is that if you were going to play it safe as a dry, you probably started the wet tyre, but that wet tyre could very quickly overheat, and then you would look to go to the slick. But here come the lights. And with 5 red lights, it's lights out, and away we go then for the second time today as 30 minutes of racing gets underway here in our race number 2 and race number 10 of the season. And Bart Raven gets a good start, but David Long and Daniel Moffat immediately queue up behind. Moffat looking a little bit eager down to braking as the rest of the field now concertinas together. Some big slides wide there. Some drivers taking it very conservatively. Oh, goodness me, and that is already Sam Smith skewing off to the left. So exit stage left goes Sam Smith. Hopefully he does not come onto the path of too many individuals, and no, in fact he survives being caught up in a further domino effect. Mickey Ford's also been caught up in a bit of a moment. In fact, Ford's all the way out in the barrier for FD Race. I don't know how he's managed to get there, but he's achieved that. We'll give you an up down that shortly, but Bart Raven is already running away at this as they make the way onwards. And as they do, well, right now it is very, very close between them. In fact, that is so tight right now, you can barely fit a 50p piece between all these Mazdas as they come into the bus stop chicane. And Francesco Pettelin right now, right in the thick of it, he's making some great progress. This Pettelin already up into 6th place, having started down in 8th, and therefore that goes to show you how seriously he's taking this right now. He wants to clear his way on through, but everyone roaring their way around the outer loop. And as they come back on us now, well, as quickly as that, they've completed the first half a lap, and now it's all going to be about settling down into an order, or is it? As Nick Clearage finds himself being elbowed out there onto a puddle of water. Hopefully that's not going to upset his balance going into turn number 6. That's side by side with Jonas Wenzel and Gareth Ronda, with Wenzel, the particular driver alongside him, trying to go around the outside to get the inside into turn number 7. But in between them comes Andrew Pike, and he says, "Do you mind if I play?" And Wenzel immediately comes across the face and says, "Go away." And well, we won't take too kindly to that, as meanwhile into the pit lane comes Lenny Hansen. He decides to come on in. Now, is that but potentially jumping the start, or is it he's got a problem with the car? Well, he's going along slowly here. I suspect that might be a jump start penalty that Hansen is having to serve, as Bart Raven leads his way on to lap number 2. Daniel Moffat is second, the leader of the Yams, ahead of Kieran Sharp. Hold up a second, David Long's out into the barriers now. The Brocker Racing Team driver has been ejected to the barrier, and well, as we come back to all those who've survived turn 1 for the second time of asking, well, you can see 2 by 2 a bit further back, but right now Ronda, he's trying to break away from Wenzel and Pike, and is interrupted our flow down the order. And to be fair, we're very grateful for that, because as our drivers all coming through, the excitement never stops at MX-5 Racing. And well, right now Gareth Ronda definitely enjoying a solid run here as he chases down another podium finish in the AM class. If he make it 2 out of 2 today, it will be his best result of the season. But as we do see him making his way through the bus stop chicane, so slippery through there at the moment, just little showers of rain just reaccumulating the water that has been gradually drying up, and that definitely makes this even harder to now as all these drivers make the way on the ground. But we will see what they're able to do as they all come through, and indeed that's a big scattering of cars there coming out to turn number 5. It's very interesting to see those who are willing to brave running over the raised curves at Watkins Glen, because they naturally will pull water and they do not provide as much grip, versus those who don't want to risk it and take much more conservative exit lines. Those who brave it, they do naturally gain a little bit more speed, but they run the risk of the car going very sideways as they come down in towards turn at number 7. And this is going to be definitely a race now, which is all about really trying to just keep your head together, as Kieran Sharp keeping his head together after a crazy into race number 1. It cuts at the inside of Bart Raven and takes the lead of the race. That's prone overall, but Raven's not going to give this one up without a fight as they go side by side in towards turn number 2. Daniel Moffat behind them, and then it's Jamie Nuttall 1.5 seconds back, not quite close enough to get involved at this point, as Francesco Pettelin and Craig Twardock also follow him on the long stretch. But all these drivers continue to push each other along here, and we're starting to see the top 3 break away a little bit. I say a little bit because, in fact, Nuttall is in the distant toe there of Moffat, so he will be getting a bit closer. Plus, also Pettelin here is playing the teamwork game. This is the classic, the enemy of my enemy is my friend logic, which is he wants to help move Nuttall along. It's smart driving, and the whole idea behind this is essentially he's going to tuck him behind and then look for an opportunity to give Nuttall a little bit of bump draft on the straights, and it will move them both closer to the top 3, and they'll naturally end up fighting for the win, not fighting for 4th place. So both drivers here have got their smart head screwed on, and meanwhile behind, Craig Twardock trying to also play a past this. He wants to get involved and chase down what could be another opportunity at the win, if not at least another podium, because he's had 1 podium podium in the last couple of rounds, but he's not made it 2 back-to-back in a single race evening. So he'd like to do that if possible. Andrew Pike defend on the inside there versus Gareth Ronda. And when he makes his way from left to right, definitely for Pike right now, it's looking as though he's trying to clear the rest of the field to get himself into that lead battle. It's easier said than done as they slide the way through turn number 7. And all these drivers making their way on down here. And well, from them, Miles Owens, meanwhile, well, he's side by side here with Martin Foster as he heads up towards turn number 1. And as he does so, picks his way back into 16th place. But as the race stabilises for a brief moment, and now I know that as soon as I've said that, I've cursed this, have I not? Well, we are going to take a look back at some of the moments from the very start of the race, including what happened to Sam Smith and also Mickey Ford right at the beginning. But just before we do, we're going to see Miles Owens there slice his way in front of Mav Gardner, very sideways there, coming through turn number 2 at the S's. And well, brings it back together, and Mav Gardner now gives him a little bit of a push along as these drivers definitely, well, they are not afraid to run close. They are absolutely fearless, but I can imagine being this fearless may be leading to some very dicey moments there as we do see Owens and Gardner rubbing up against each other on a straight. And they've got to go at the best part of 120 miles an hour plus into a braking zone, as that's going to be Chandler going a bit deep. Well, he managed to get it stopped in time before it runs away from him. And just in front, Tom Davison and Alan McCain are fighting once again. And, well, Jonas Wenzel, meanwhile, we can see here in 10th place, he's just trying to break away from them as popping a wheel is Gareth Ronda there. Jumps up onto 3 wheels for a brief moment and finds a bit of rain as his reward, as he's going to have Alan McCain on the inside of him and Tom Davidson on the outside. But in the end, is able to cover off Davidson, and McCain with him now through turn 6. But up towards turn 7 they come, and these drivers right now very closely nipped together. Very fierce fighting between them, no doubt about it. As the RS Esports driver just staying ahead by an inch there. Alan McCain definitely digging in. Well, we have got a car peeling all the way over to the left-hand side here, and that is going to be the car, I do believe, of what is, I think that might be a lap down car, Mickey Ford at this point. Not 100% certain that one, so don't quote me, but I think Ford just trying to stay out of trouble. No, that's the car of David Long, in fact. We do correct ourselves there, so David Long a lap down now. Doesn't want to get in trouble. We can't just make his car disappear, but everyone safely makes their way around the blue flag respecting driver, and well, onwards towards the next portion of the race they go. But naturally, this is going to bring everybody back together between 11th place all the way through to 21st place. So we have got a pack of 11 cars together right now as they all make their way onwards, and that's excluding Long, who's a lap down and makes himself the 12th car in that pack. And I think he would prefer it not to be that way. So close between them all here as these drivers push onwards. It's absolutely fantastic to see, and well, plenty more fighting certainly before all is said and done. But with that, we are now going to take a look back at some of the moments from earlier on in the race, and in particular what happened to Sam Smith right at the start. So here we go, ladies and gents. We can take a look back to what happened to Sam Smith, and this was down in towards turn number 1 on the opening lap. Went into the corner side by side with the 57, and in the end just loses his own volition and slides off the exit curb, and lucky not to hit the driver who was to the right in there as the rest of the field fanned its way around. But meanwhile, it was not good luck for Mickey Ford at the start of the race. This is what happened to the FD Racing driver. Into the corner he went a bit deep and snapped one way then the other, and then Sims, once again, much like at the final corner of the Circuito de Navarra last week, found himself in the wrong place at the right time to help a driver on their way. I think he'll be gutted about that one. We had this for David Long on lap number 2. And turn number 1 definitely proving to be the bane of a lot of drivers' existence here today at Watkins Glen. Went full steam into the corner. The car went one way then the other and lost control and slid to the barrier, and that will be a collapsed rear right suspension. There is no coming back from that other than a tow to the pits. But how we come back from it is we return to your live racing. So as we make our way back, plenty more action to come before all is said and done. And all these drivers right now giving it everything they can as they roar the way onwards. As they do. Well, it does seem as though for William Chandler, it's all about keeping his head down here and getting stuck in it to win it. But looking a bit further up the order, here is your race leader right now, Kieran Sharp. And well, he is the best part of 9 minutes into this race. We've got a long way to go. Indeed, right now, these laps are gradually being accrued. But Sharp and Nuttall are gradually pulling away from the rest of the field as Francesco Petalin has in fact been dropped. Now, this is going to make it very interesting because for Kieran Sharp, he needs to beat Jamie Nuttall, but we do believe provisionally, hold up a second, that's Bart Raven into the barrier there. Well, Bart Raven interrupts our train of thought. We'll come back to what we were thinking about a moment ago. Raven are getting it very wrong out of turn number 6 and hitting the barrier. Hits it flush, so it does look as though the Cracked Racing 51 is able to carry on, but that is not a small amount of an impact there. That was a big whack to the left-hand side, and I wouldn't be surprised here if that car now is going to be feeling a little bit shaken, if not stirred. But we'll see whether he can stir himself into action as the remainder of the laps play out. He does now have Daniel Moffat for close company, the AM leader right on his heels as they head up the hill, and we ride on board with Moffat. Now, when you're running this close, the one nice thing is about it is the fact the spray that comes off the car in front of you isn't as significant as if you were a little bit further back. So the fact that Moffat right now is all over the back side of what is Bart Raven is actually a good thing for him as they power their way down towards the bus stop chicane. Side by side, they'll make their way into that braking zone. But as they do, Moffat on the outside there naturally will back off, knowing there's no real way through. He's just going to have to play the patience game as he makes his way into those corners. But being smart with it, well, that is a certainty, and he's being very clever about how smart he's been as they roll their way on through. And Moffat right now knows that he's on course for what could be an absolutely brilliant win. I believe it would be his maiden win if he's able to pull this off, but he's going to give it everything he can in order to see it all the way through to the conclusion. But a long way to go in this race, and if the conditions do evolve, you then start to ask yourself the question, do we see a transition to the dry tyre? If they're all out there on wets at the moment, then it likely could potentially happen, depending on how late. If they are on dry tyres at the moment, naturally the race pace will be building up once again, and with that we could suddenly see some drivers who are normally quick in the dry but struggling in the wet. They could suddenly make their way up that order very quickly. So that's where the intrigue begins, because at any moment right now, if you're Daniel Moffat, this race could go from one side of the spectrum to another, and that's the last thing you really want to have happen. Jonas Venz will be hoping there's a bit of a transition if he can. Keeping in mind, of course, that it would not be the first win of the season that if Daniel Moffat brings this home, because, of course, he did take the win in what was round number 1 in the sprint race all those many weeks ago. And so for Daniel Moffat, it'd be his second time on the top step. And indeed, the AM class has had multiple different winners over the course of the season. It's had more winners than the pro class. And well, that just goes to show you how close the competition is. Conversely, in the pro class, if Jamie Nuttall was to make it a win here today, that would be his 6th win of the season. For Kieran Sharp, it would be his 4th win of the season. So those two really gobbling up all the wins as much as they possibly can. But as our drivers head on down, Bradley Horsell right now a little bit further down, but he's enjoying a bit of an exchange here as he powers his way onwards. And back to the very front of the field where he can see your top two. They push each other onwards, and then we go to Francesco Petalin, who finds himself in good company because Craig Twardock says, do you mind if I come out to play? And I think Francesco will be saying, can you politely not? I think Twardock's going to be wondering where he's going as he runs out very wide there. My good lord, the man almost ends up in the grandstand. And as he makes his way coming through turn number 7, well, right now, Twardock definitely using all the track and plenty more. If he's paid for it, he's going to use it, I think he's saying. But he's tucking in behind Mark Raven here, and, well, Daniel Moffat watching this, I think thinking it's all going to end in tears. I don't want to get caught up in it as they come down towards turn number 1 for what will be for them the 9th time of asking. But through the right-hander they slide, and as they do, side by side, Petalin and Raven there. Well, as he makes his way onwards, that's Petalin and Clemens, my apologies, and then Raven's on the left. Twardock right now doing a very good job here, just keeping his car pointed in a straight line after the misery of the ending of race number 1. But we can see there Raven covering off the inside through turn number 3 to the outside of 4, but picks up the overspeed, picks up a draft. And notice also the standing water that's forming on the inside of the curbing, or the inside of the apex, we should really say, for these S's corners. And what that means is, as a driver, you do not want to touch the curb, or you don't want to dip your tyres in there. As we see a driver going straight on, that is a run on there for Francesco Petalin, who takes the escape route. That's going to cause him to have a slowdown that he's going to have to serve, and he'll gradually do it. But how can he do it in time? That's going to be the problem. He won't have long to serve it, and he'll want to try and do it in a way that doesn't punish him too much. But unfortunately, he may have to lose multiple positions here. He may even lose this pack, depending on how he has to serve that slowdown. If he has picked one up indeed, but right now he's not showing any visible signs at least of slowing down. If anything, he's holding position here, and I think just being escorted onwards, they'll be very happy to be still in this pack, as that is Nick Clemens going almost very sideways, and Petalin cuts off his nose. Twardock looking around the outside as they come towards the end of this lap. And plenty of fighting between them, no doubt about it here. Absolutely engaging fighting for third place. As Twardock now on the outside, trying to pass Clemens. Clemens defends that inside line. And we're thinking out how best to do so. Bart Raven, they're going very aggressive, but Raven's going to find out. You go aggressively on braking in towards turn 1. You've then got to back off on exit because with all the water, the car is naturally going to understeer. And that understeer almost catches him out. A bit further down the order, Paul Sims is on a bit of a charge. He's up into 5th place in the AM class already, and I think he'll now fancy his chances with regards to being able to move a little bit further up that running order where he can. Brady Horsenall there falls behind as Sims tucks up the inside, and the pro driver Horsenall not fighting it too hard, I think focusing more on survival rather than making any mistakes. Elsewhere on the circuit, Martin Rendell's been involved in a little bit of misery, has the privateer, as he's fallen back to 13th. He was a bit further up the order, but somehow he's been able to keep it together. And with regards to Martin Rendell, what exactly happened? Well, the good news is we have a replay to explain. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Let's find out. So this was Rendell making his way out of turn at number 6 in towards 7. Went into the right hand on 33, and the rear of the car went completely loose on him and had to do a 360-degree pirouette. But that's dropped him all the way down from what was at the time 11th down to 13th. So not too many places lost, but definitely a bit of a gutting mistake. Meanwhile, for Luke Smith, this was on lap number 9. What went wrong for Luke Smith? He's had a bit of a miserable day today, and it's only getting worse as he went very sideways through 1, cut towards 2, and once again finds himself to the same barrier that he found himself in earlier on today. And we're definitely getting very familiar with the marshals there, down a 90 right at turn number 1 as we return to your live racing. So as we come back, we look to Rendell, who's now carrying his weight on, the 4th place and runner there, hoping that the result stays with him and he can perhaps move a little bit further forward. But with regards to the time as it ticks away, we are at the halfway point of this race now. And here is your top 2. Don't be confused, it's not quite a top 3, as much as we'd love it to be, because that's Mav Gardner directly behind. And he is a lap down there, is the 11th place AM driver, albeit Sim Racing Collective would love to help out their teammate. Not Jamie Nuttall or Kieran Sharp, but help him out versus Jamie Nuttall, I should say. But right now, Kieran Sharp really having to work this one by himself as Francesco Petalin, meanwhile, now 12.5 seconds off of the leaders. That is how much fighting is going on here, and the fact that nobody wants to work together. And Twardog and Petalin join an incredible dicey fight as Petalin rejoins and gives the elbow to Twardog, saying, "Do you mind?" And well, Nick Clemens watches on behind and thinks, "Okay, how can I get involved in all of this?" And a bit further back, well, we do have, of course, the view on the gyroscopic camera from Bart Raven's car for Cracked Racing. Oh no, that's all gone wrong. That's Petalin and Twardog to the barrier there. As soon as we see it, it all unfolds like that, and Raven right now picks up 2 places at the price of 1. And what I was about to say is it's probably looking at this and thinking, how long is it going to be before they give each other the nudge? And well, the answer is it's just happened, because Petalin's had to tow to the pits. Twardog is carrying on, but with a front bumper that is very loose on the front end of the car, and we'll have to get a replay of how exactly that happened shortly, ladies and gentlemen. But that is not a surprise, but it's an unwelcome moment to be certain. And I say it's not a surprise because how close they were running. I thought it might have ended up in tears in these tricky conditions, and so it has. But it's no discredit to the fact they were both fighting so well for so long. As the rain starts to fall once again, well, the Watkins Glen circuit definitely right now throwing all the rain in one season, all in one go here. And this is leading to a very, very dramatic end to this race potentially. And depending on now how long these drivers have got with regards to, with regards to the conditions. But Kieran Sharp, he's looking to be in control at the moment, as best he possibly can be, but Jamie Nuttall still pushing him along, and Francesco Petalin making an observation there, which is every time we provide an on-board, it leads to disaster, particularly for Petalin, it would seem, and drivers around him, but in general as well, it does seem the on-board cameras seem to reveal a lot more at the very worst possible moments, and it's purely coincidence, I swear. Well, as Jamie Nuttall stays close here, the rain falls in full force at this point. And right now, well, these two 14 seconds clear. They continue to abscond up the road. Clemens is now the 3rd place man, but this fight for the lead, it's definitely becoming very personal between these two as they come down. And I believe they're good friends off the circuit, but right now on the circuit, it is going to feel as though it's a bit of war. But going out to turn 1, right now, Sharp in control, and Nuttall knows they've still got the best part of 12 minutes plus the final lap to decipher this one. So therefore, he doesn't need to do anything other than stay close, at least for the time being. Albeit, we have seen in previous rounds that Nuttall does have a preference to be the leader in a pair rather than be the driver who's chasing. Well, I wonder in these conditions whether perhaps he does not mind being the chase here just because of how risky these conditions are and how easy it is to make a mistake. Well, he stays exactly behind there, behind Sam Smith looking for a move on Mav Garner, a lap down for 19th place overall. The Pro driver trying to pick his way past the AM driver, but so far no success as they head in towards turn 5. Down through the right-hander they go, and as they do, well, we look to Alan McCain, meanwhile, who's got Janos Wenzel close by. Wenzel right now still in second place in AM. His target is Daniel Moffat, and Moffat being the best part in terms of distance between the two of them, 5.5 seconds up the road. So it does mean that he does need to work a little bit with McCain, if McCain can get him closer, that is. But Daniel Moffat is in a bit of clear air at the moment. He's not got anybody to work with slipstream-wise, but I think he'll be feeling quite confident. That's all he needs to see this race to the close as we take a look back at what happened between Twardog and Petelin only moments ago, ladies and gentlemen. So here was the big instant that really has defined potentially one of the big battles in the fight for third place. Petelin there, loose already out the corner. Twardog, meanwhile, had much better control. And at that point, well, I can imagine Twardog was already on his line when they made the way into the corner. And therefore, there was no real way back from that. As we take a look back to a bit earlier on. Now, this was, of course, how it all started between the two of them. As they battled side by side coming in towards the bus stop chicane on that very same lap. And, well, Twardog was the pursuer at this point. But in the way and down through the bus stop chicane, well, this was where Petelin was a little bit sideways, and meanwhile it was going to be Nick Clemens who just watched on behind. But as we then jumped on board here, this is where things went to a bit of difficulty. Because Twardog, side by side at the moment, you'll see Petelin comes back across, he is the lead car, but in towards turn 6 now with extra rainfall, this made the corner even more slippery than usual. Petelin was on the inside line, went for the brakes, I think tried to overturn the car, he'll fall out of camera shot and then suddenly he'll come back across. Twardog's tried to hold his line and the two have just become entangled, and naturally in the end as they both ricocheted off the barrier, Petelin to Twardog, Twardog to barrier, and that was the story between the two of them. I don't think there's any foul play really, it was just the case that both pushed it hard, and once they both committed to the corner, it really was in the lap of the gods in terms of which way it was going to go as we make our way back to your live racing. So as we do come back, Alan McCain now presses on as we ride aboard here with the man, and as he roars his way onwards here for Alan McCain, it is now going to be, for him, much like many, just see this race all the way to the end, because we have got not too long left in the distance. We are into the final third, but anything can happen. It normally does in MX-5 racing, and we've seen that this season so far, time and time again. And our leaders right now, they find themselves in a bit of a peculiar situation because they are picking their way past a little bit of traffic that's lapped down, and that was the car of, excuse me, I do believe that was one of the iRace esports cars they just picked their way past, and I believe that might be the car of Sam Smith that's missing a front bumper almost. Well, as these two push each other along, it looks so Nuttall right now is just pushing Kieran Sharp on the straights and just keeping him under a bit of mental pressure rather than trying to do anything magical with it. Understandably, I think the logic might be here for Jamie Nuttall. Just be patient, make Kieran Sharp fall a little bit asleep at the wheel in terms of not expecting fighting, and then suddenly go all in the last couple of laps. But I expect that Kieran, he's not going to be silly about this one. I think he'll know that right now the two of them are working together until the final couple of laps, and then suddenly it's all going to be full hammer and tongs racing. Meanwhile, it is going to be back and forth fighting here because there was a small mistake earlier on from Daniel Moffat. Previous lap he was 4 seconds slow. I believe he had a bit of a moment of his own volition. That has dropped it behind Alan McCain, but most importantly, Janos Wenzel has caught up almost as they make the way on through. In fact, no, he hasn't. My apologies. Janos Wenzel was 9 seconds back there as I lose sight of the cars, and that was Alan McCain making his way out wide. But yes, it does seem as though Daniel Moffat has lost quite a bit of time, and Wenzel now is 9 seconds behind rather than 13. So he is closing gradually. Alan McCain, meanwhile, has found his way ahead of Daniel Moffat, so it is going to be a top 7 of pros, and then the rest of the top 10 is all your top 3 AM drivers, because Gareth Ronda, who you can see here a little bit further back for Cracked Racing, he's holding on right now and looking to make it back-to-back podiums here today, and if he does so, that will definitely be a season best performance for Ronda, and he will be absolutely ecstatic about that one. Given the way his season has played out, to suddenly make it happen like this, well, I think that's going to put a smile on his face. We'll see what he's going to be able to do then as he makes the distance. All the racing still to come here between all these drivers. It's not, excuse me, it's not over yet by any stretch of the imagination. And well, the only thing you can imagine at this point is that if the rain does come back in full force, it's only going to make this circuit even slipperier, even more so than it is currently. But otherwise, the only fight at the moment That's ready on our screens is your top two of your overall leaders of Kieran Sharp and Jamie Nuttall. But coming towards the end of this lap, the question we're wondering is when will Nuttall go for the move? They've got a bit of traffic in front of them. That's Lenny Hansen, who's been struggling along. Albeit he will gradually get there as they make their way out to turn number 7. And Sharp decides to go a bit low here, takes a little bit less speed through the corner to guarantee he can take a low line out the corner. Nuttall's going to follow him there, had to back off slightly. And right now, all these drivers are coming up behind. And that showed the right to be there. Oh, goodness me. As that was Nuttall coming across. I think he mistimed the cut across over the front of Hansen. I think he expected Hansen to completely loft off the throttle in towards turn number 1. But in the end, Nuttall almost into the barrier there, almost tipped sideways. And, well, if he had been, that could have completely blown the race open. It could have potentially seen his race go from good to bad to disastrous in such a short period of time. And suddenly, for Kieran Sharp, that could have been an opening there, but not to be. So right now, Jamie Nuttall using up many of his 9 lives today, used a few of them in the sprint race, and he's just used, I think, the rest of them in this one. And well, surely he's not going to get away with anything more than that. But that was definitely a bit of a scary moment as we look back from the rear of Sharp's car. You can see both drivers absolutely sliding around there as they make their way out to the bus stop chicane. There is just no grip out there whatsoever. You do want to drift these MX-5s, even in dry conditions, but here it really is being on a skid pan right now as they make their way back to us. And well, for Jamie Nuttall, that moment has not dampened his confidence whatsoever. If anything, it's only whetted his appetite to go attacking once again. But I can see it, but Fly ETA asking the question, I do agree. How on earth did Nuttall hold that? No idea. That's going to be one of the contenders for save of the season, because that was definitely a monster moment and one of the things which really has set him apart from the rest of the field and why he is your Pro Championship leader, and after this race could be your Pro Champion elect. On to what is now lap number 18 they go. 4 minutes left on the clock, so they'll deliver this lap, plus most likely 2 more. And right for Kieran Sharp, it's now going to be about when that move is coming, as a bit of rain continues to fall on what is the start area of the lap. But it does seem as though the rain, for the most part, has calmed down now. Looking a bit further back into the AM class, Paul Sims has found his way past Jonas Wenzel. And in fact, there's been a bit of drama for Wenzel, who was running in second place in the AM class for some time. He's dropped all the way back. Where is Wenzel? He's just behind Sims, in fact. But how did he get there? Well, we have a replay to explain. Now, this was only moments ago for Jonas Wenzel through the bus stop chicane. Caught it initially. Second part, meanwhile, comes down off of the curbing there, and the rear of the car just completely goes around him. And in the end, lovely work to reverse it back up onto the flat part of the circuit and get it pointed back in the straight line immediately. But that is how Paul Sims suddenly found his way through. There was Ronda, and then Sims came through shortly after. Prior to this, a lap before, we had this for Martin Foster. So Martin Foster had a bit of a nightmare moment for the bus stop chicane, and well, the RPMS SimSport driver, your championship leader in AM, went very sideways, went around there, but managed to get it stopped right off of the racing line. Well done to him. I think in another universe that would have gone sliding back across the circuit and collected the poor driver of what was Matt Smith, but not to be there, as he definitely got it back together in good time. Well done, that man. Let's make your way back to your live racing. And as we do, ladies and gents, well, things are now getting very tight in the fight for the final podium, well, second and third in what is the AM class here, because Gareth Ronda has come on through. Is looking to chase down what would be a second place here. Paul Sims is right behind him, Jonas Wenzel with him. So these three all together, nice and close, but 3 minutes left on the clock. This lap that they're about to go on to, plus 1 more after that. And well, from there, who's it going to be? Who's the run-up in AM? Because Daniel Moffat seems to be in control, particularly when he is the best part of what is 14 seconds up the road. I don't think Moffat is really under pressure here. Here you can see him, and then look to the rear of the picture. You'll see the rest of the AM drivers a long way away. That really articulates the gap that Moffat has been able to pull out. Then we look back to Bradley Horsdale, who's running in 9th, and Gareth Ronda completes the overall top 10. But here comes Sims up the inside. Sims going for the move here, and we haven't seen him feeling this dicey since the season opener back at Okayama all those weeks ago. Indeed, it has been a season of what was early expectations, miserable mid-season, and now seems though Sims is getting it back together. He moves into second. and is trying to charge away from Ronda as Janos Wenzel queues up behind, and all three of these drivers all sporting some damage of their own wounds over the course of the race. Janos Wenzel in particular, a lot of damage on the front of that car, and where you can see Sims, he's got quite a bit over the left front wheel arch, albeit it's not immediately clear, but you can see it as the wheel arch curves away from the wheel itself. But powering the way in towards the bus stop chicane, no change between them. Bart Raven side by side here with Davidson. Davidson reclaiming another place and moves now up into what is 5th place down. I do believe Davidson, with what was a non-finish in race number 1, has definitely made a lot of ground in this one. He's found his way through very quickly indeed, as Kieran Sharp right now, where he seems to be the man who's on a mission here to try and hold off Jamie Nuttall, and well, understandably so, because he wants to keep this championship alive. But what could he do here as they power the way along? Because Nuttall's now starting to become a little bit more intimidating. And here we go then. 2 wide into the bus stop chicane. Sharp on one side, Nuttall on the other. Nuttall goes around the outside. Takes a lot of curb. Causes the car to kick sideways. And Sharp, meanwhile, plays it safe. Running the way on through. Jamie Nuttall's car control is absolutely on point as they make the way around through turn number 5. Sharp on the high and dry line there. Well, as they come out of the corner, he's going to retake the lead. Is Sharp only by a hair's width. And Jamie Nuttall right now building up this huge amount of pressure. Now, is this the final lap or not? We are very close to time here with only 10 seconds left. We might be on the final lap, in fact. Yes, we are. This is going to be the finish very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. So the clock strikes 30 minutes, and coming out of the final corner, it's going to be a drag race to the line, surely, as Kieran Sharp makes his way on through. The checker flag waves. Is it Sharp? Is it Nuttall? It's going to be, I think, Kieran Sharp's going to do it. He will take victory, but Jamie Nuttall behind him will take 2nd place, and well, with that result, could be your pro champion elect ahead of Nick Clibbins then, who's going to be a further what is 17 seconds behind. Clibbins slides his way out the final corner. He's made it onto the podium for iRacing Esports. He's done exactly what he needs to do and brings himself on home, with Andrew Pike in the end taking 4th place ahead of teammate Tom Davidson, who's come all the way through the field to finish in 5th, just ahead of Bart Raven. Alan McCain a little bit further back behind. You can see they're also finishing a lap down. That's Mark Pezza, and then we'll have Alan McCain 11 seconds adrift, bringing his car home in 7th place. It's the top 7 of pros. Now, a further 7 seconds back, you're going to see, returning to the top step after taking a victory much earlier in the season, it'll be Daniel Moffat, who takes his 2nd win in AM of the season. Well done to the privateer in the Mario Machine. Then it'll be Bradley Horsdale in 9th place, ahead of Paul Sims, who returns to the AM podium after a long hiatus. 2nd place in class, 10th on the road overall. Gareth Ronda makes it 3rd place, and then it will be, and that's in AM of course, Janos Wenzel, who just missed out on the AM podium, and with it takes 12th place overall. Craig Tardock, he comes on through and finishes in 13th ahead of Martin Rendell, who comes to line. He rounds off your top 5 in the AM class. He'll have behind him Matt Smith. A little bit further back is Smith. That's Miles Owens you saw just cross the line a lap down behind. And it'll be Matt Smith who takes 15th here for Cracked Racing. And then we'll have Martin Foster come to that finish line, take it at 16th place. And then we have one more drive to finish their race. And I believe it is going to be Valerio Tedeschi, who in fact has finished, ladies and gentlemen. He's parked the car up there, and well, he's decided that's where his race ends. But as race number 2 comes to a close, an incredible race, a few Mazdas in bits there. I think that might have been a bit of an altercation between Nick Clibbins and Andrew Pike as they come across the line. I think they're having a bit of a party, these guys, as Alan McCain says hello and manages to steer clear of the 2 drivers, clearly taking a little bit of frustration out, or a bit of excitement. You guess which one? Well, let's take a look back to those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries for an absolutely thrilling feature. Didn't quite have the drama and madness of the sprint, but still, it definitely had plenty to watch out for. And well, we look to the scenic view and let's find out exactly how they all finished in race number 2. So after 30 minutes of racing in the feature race at Watkins Glen in round number 5 of the 2025 Sim Racing Collective MX-5 Championship held on iRacing, Kieran Sharp bringing on home what was a brilliant victory there for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. 4 attempts ahead of Cracked Race's Jamie Nuttall, but with the win in race number 1 and a 2nd place in race number 2, for Jamie Nuttall, I do believe this does make him a champion-elect, and we'll show you that on the points very shortly after this, ladies and gentlemen, as the Cracked Racing driver definitely has delivered. Then we see in 3rd, Nick Clibbins, iRacing Esports. He may have been much further away from the top 2, but to be fair, to be the best of the rest there, there overall in Pro Class. I think he'll be ecstatic about that, the iRacing Esports driver, ahead of Andrew Pike, who was 5 seconds behind, with the Sim Racing Collective Esports driver ahead of teammate Tom Davidson. And then did see Bart Raven in 6th. A brilliant effort there from Raven for Cracked Racing, given how things went wrong in race number 1, and finishing 10th there. We started on pole in this one and scored some solid points for a 6th place finish. From the Dutchman, it was then the Irishman of Alan McCain for Iris Esports, ahead of Daniel Moffat, where the privateer there heading a privateer trio of himself, Bradley Horsnell and Paul Sims, completing that top 10. But most importantly for Daniel Moffat, AM victory, and that follows on from his win at the start of the season at Okayama in the AM class, where he's now made it 2 wins over the course of 10 races. Well done to him in the number 10. Bit poetic there, the number 10 would win in its class in the 10th race of the season, with Paul Sims, meanwhile, your runner-up there in the AM class, and returns to the podium, and a big long hiatus from the podium for Paul Sims, where it's nice to see him back there as well, and you'd have to look all the way back to what was, I do believe, well, it was round number 2, in race number 2 there we finished on the podium, but he has had a drought since then, has Paul Sims, so therefore it is a return to a bit of normality. Gareth Ronda took 3rd place in the AM class right at the close there, 11th place overall, a solid effort from him, and he'll be very pleased with that podium for Cracked Racing, ahead of Janis Wenzel, 4th place in the AM class, 12th on the road. The privateer will be gutted to miss out on the podium and really lose out an opportunity to bring himself right into contention for the championship in the season finale. Craig Tardock took 13th place at MSA Racing, ahead of Martin Rendell, with Matt Swift completing your top 15, and with it 6th place in the AM class. We then saw Martin Foster 16th, the last to leave that finishers for RPMS Simsport, and Mav Gardner finishing behind him, directly behind, a lap down for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. I think the results here today have levelled the playing field between the two of them going to our finale. That's going to blow the AM Championship wide open then for our season finale, and that's great to see. Lenny Hansen takes what is 18th place, a lap down there for Bottle Job Racing, and then your top 20 was completed by Mark Pears and Miles Owens. Sam Smith, 21st place, 2 laps down at the close. A frustrating race for the Iris Esports driver, just ahead of Valerio Tedeschi, with 7 laps down there and non-classified at the finish for David Long. And also there, multiple laps down, 9 laps down for Francesco Petalin. A frustrating race, number 2 for Absolute Motorsport A-Swift Superstar. Indeed, the Italian driver there will be fuming about how this one has played out. Luke Smith there, 25th, 10 laps down for FD Racing. We had 13 laps down for both William Chandler and Eugenio Polici. Thomas Martin as well, another big loss from this race. The Shadow Drake Racing driver, 28th there, 15 laps down at the close for a non-finish. And Mickey Ford, the earliest retirement there after only what was half a lap turned. The FD Racing driver ended up in the barrier. Well, goodness me, ladies and gents, but a race number 2 to really be commensurate with race number 1, no doubt about it. And well, as we do now get set to wrap up today, we are just going to briefly take a bit of a small breather, and we are going to now be bringing you what will be the provisional standings going into the season finale. So bear with us, and we'll bring those up on screen. And when we do, we can promise you it's going to be very intriguing to see how everything heads into that final round. So as we make our way then into the season finale, this is how the provisional standings stand with 1 round and Stewart's verdicts for round number 5. We begin then with the Pro Championship, and here we can see after 5 rounds, it is a lead of 212 points for Jamie Nuttall for Cracked Racing versus the 184 of Kieran Sharp for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. We believe this does make him provisional champion in the Pro class. Because of the way the drop scores are applied, we believe that Kieran Sharp cannot improve enough now in order to be able to get ahead of Jamie Nuttall, or he would need a huge result. And well, that's regardless whether Nuttall attends on the grid next week or not. Therefore, Kieran Sharp right now will need to make sure that Tom Davidson doesn't find a way to snatch second place away from him. He seems certain for second, however, there is a remote chance if my mental mathematics is correct between the two teammates. MSA Racing's Craig Tardot, with the results today, has moved even closer to the top 3, and surely he's got to believe now, only 3 points behind, he can make the magic happen, with then a 14-point gap to Nick Clemens, who sits in 5th for iRacing Esports, wrapping up the top 5. In the top 5, very firmly away from the rest of the field, with Francesco Petelin now falling to 6th for Absolute Motorsport Acelift and needing to hold off the intentions of Miles Owens, who's only 3 points back. And then it's Bart Raver for Cracked Racing on 103, 1 ahead of Andrew Pike for the Sim Racing Collective Esports, with Pike's 4th place in the second race of the day, giving a huge points haul from Watkins Glen. And iRacing Esports' Alan McCain wrapping off your top 10 there on 99 points and well in the hunt for what could be an 8th place finish at the end of the season. Bradley Horsnell sits in 11th on 85 ahead of Clive Bourne, with Sam Smith's 75 points there, only a further 2 points behind. And it's a sizable gap to William Chandler with 8 points over Jack Southfield. And your pro standings are wrapped up by Eugenio Polici, Kieran O'Reilly and Gurgley Conzabo. Coming on to the AM class, and what we can see here is that it's Martin Foster who is still ahead. In fact, let's just double check to make sure these standings are correct. But I believe, yes, they are. And Martin Foster still leads despite a damaging day today. And that's the power of the drop score. But he's only 4 points ahead of Daniel Moffat, who's second and first here, have catapulted him right back into contention. For Mav Gardner, this will be a heartbreaking round because suddenly all that gap he'd been able to close down has reopened with a 7th and 8th place finish, and he'll be ruined the fact that his season opener of a 14th and a 4th have really proved costly. And Okiyama now is essentially locked in as his drop score, and he needs to find a huge haul of points if he wants to become the AM champion. Jonas Wenzel as well, a further 3 points behind. He's still in it, however, he needs a lion's share of the score and he needs the other 3 to lose out. So it's a 4-way fight for the crown come the end of the season next Monday, with Paul Sims in 5th, the privateer, a bit further behind, 31 off, and right now seems to be in no man's land to take 5th place. Cracked Races Matt Smith is equal on points to LeBroca Racing's David Long, but he's ahead based on result count back, with Mark Pezza in 8th place ahead of Lenny Hansen and Martin Rendell and the Bottle Job Racing and Privateer rounding off your top 10 in the AM class. Best of the rest in length is Gareth Ronda for Cracked Racing on 92 points, only 1 outside the top 10. It's going to be a spicy end to the season between them, and it's a further 3 points to Valerio Tedeschi, who's still in the hunt for a top 10 finish. Thomas Martin sits in 13th for Shadow Drag Racing, 4 ahead of FT Racing's Luke Smith. Now you have Crilio Turan and Mickey Ford rounding off your provisional AM standings after round number 5. So that's how they all stand, ladies and gentlemen, and it does mean that whilst the Pro class may have been decided by next week, the AM class is still very much wide open, and we still have the question of who are going to be our runners-up in Pro. That's always a question we always look out for. But with that, because this is a post-round broadcast, we are going to leave conducting post-round interviews today, and instead our focus is going to be on wrapping things up. And, well, thank you very much for watching. And if you have enjoyed today's show, perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to be on the grid or wanting to find more out about the Sim Racing Collective, well, we do recommend you go to our website, and that's at www.tsrc.club. Alternatively, if you don't want to go to our website, although we do strongly recommend it, because what you'll see on screen very shortly is our glamorous website there, which has all the information you could ever want to your fingertips with regards to being able to join the Sim Racing Collective community via the Beating Heart, which is the Discord, all of our socials on the left, and also we do have our news pages at the top, and also our partners and affiliates at the bottom. Well, if you don't necessarily want to go to our absolutely simple to use website, perhaps if you're a bit more of what is a social media person, you can of course follow us on Twitter, and that's for all our latest updates and news, and that's at twitter.com/TSRC_official. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our partners and affiliates, who do include of course Motorsport UK's esports division, as we are a recommended community with them, on which we're very grateful for that recognition, and long may it continue. Also, I'd like to say a big thank you to SimGrid, Coach Dave Academy, and the Bruzy Simulation and Motorsport. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, there's only one round to go. And in a week's time, live from Circuit Side, we will be bringing the curtain down on the 2025 Sim Racing Collective MX-5 Championship on iRacing. But with our Pro Championship looking to be all wrapped up, the focus will definitely turn to the AMs. And who of our 4 candidates will be bringing it on home? Will it be the leader of Martin Foster? Will it be the rising star of Daniel Moffat? Can Mav Gardner swing things in his way? Or can Jonas Wenzel suddenly find a way to bounce back a final time and steal it all the way from the top 3? Well, tune in on Monday the 13th of October 2025 to find out how it all concludes in our 6th round at the Red Bull Rings National Circuit. But until then, we've been the Sim Racing Collective. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, like our drivers, ladies and gentlemen, even if it is inclement conditions, remember to stay on track. Good night.